Hi, folks. Okay, we didn't have a chance yesterday to do a postmortem on the Trump interview because the show ended, so we didn't have a chance to discuss it. Now, I thought the president made news at least 3 times in that interview, maybe 4, if news coverage of the president were conventional. But news coverage of the president isn't conventional. Most of the coverage, we've done a review of it. It's kind of hilarious. Most of them are ticked off that he was on with me and not with them. And that's what drove them in their commentary on the president's interview yesterday, which we will review. Also, Brit Hume went a little too far in saying that the Iranians are no different than the Democrats, or that the Democrats are no different than the Iranians in their criticism of Trump. So we put together side by side Democrat comments, Iranian comments, and you decide. You tell me if you can even tell the difference. Can't wait for that. That's all coming up. Now, the drive-by media is going wall-to-wall coverage of the funeral of General Salmonella, or Salami, or whatever you want to call him, Soleimani. The media going wall-to-wall coverage of the funeral. We're getting to see all of the supposed mourners. Now, Buck Sexton, CIA analyst, former guest host of this program, was just on Fox, and he said what I told you yesterday. The regime goes door to door to ask you if you are going to the funeral, and if you say no, they leave your head in the house and take your body to the funeral. They literally do. They go door to door, and they ask you if you're going to join the mourners, and if you say you're not, then that's the end of you. Now, there's some, look, it's a big country. There's some people genuinely distressed that the terrorist is dead. But this big crowd that you're seeing this is a totalitarian state. The people there don't have any free will, and they don't have freedom of choice. And when the regime wants you to do something, you better show up and do it, especially, look, he says they're going door to door, and he would know. And you get the mourners there shedding tears for their lost martyr. But where was this kind of coverage back in November? 1 million truly brave Iranians took to the streets back in November to protest the regime. And back then, the Iranian government killed over 1,500 protesters. They put 7,000 more in jail. And we saw nothing about that in the American drive-by media. So after something like that, you have 1 million Iranians taking to the streets to protest the mullahs, essentially. 1,500 of them were killed, 7,000 put in jail. That's just last November. So now Soleimani dies. They go door to door asking you if you're going to go to the funeral, and you say no. Well, then you get added to the 1,500 dead or the 7,000 injured. And the Ayatollah Khamenei, he was out there crying. And so I got a note from a friend of mine, Zev Chaffetz. Remember Zev Chaffetz? He wrote a New York Times profile of me, and he wrote a great biography of Roger Ailes. I don't know if he wants to be attributed in this email. Now that I'm it's a funny, he sent me a note. He said, Rush, when I saw the Ayatollah crying yesterday, made me think of the Hollywood producer in The Godfather, waking up in bed next to the severed head of his beloved horse. Shock is the first emotion. Then bluster comes next. And then you start to wonder what else the Godfather is capable of. And ta-da, the singer gets the part in the movie after they leave your dead horse head in the bed next to you. Now, if the Ayatollah is sane, that's how this is going to come down. But that's a big if the Ayatollah is sane. The Ayatollah says that Iranians, not proxies, should strike at America. Trump says that the United States will bomb 52 targets if a single American is hurt. By the way, Brian, throw that picture up. Yesterday, they say this is just a coincidence. 52 F-35 stealth fighters were put on the runway at an Air Force base in the middle of the country. It was just a coincidence, they said. 52 of them. Look at those gorgeous stealth fighters. We're showing the picture to you on the Ditto Cam. 52 of them on the gigantic Air Force Base runway. Conrad Black has a piece today that, I've talked about this in generic terms in the past. And it is about the ability that the United States singularly has to project power in the world. We have no match. There is not a single nation on, maybe the Chicoms, but their development is behind ours. We still are the superpower of the world, and every enemy of the United States knows it. And I think this would be a good time to share with you some of the things that Conrad Black wrote in his piece, Americans Will Rally Around Trump on Iran. This is a piece found at American Greatness. And let me give you some great pull quotes of this piece. We are strong in our military and in our economy, and there is no match to either our military or our economy anywhere in the world. Now, millennials and college students and high school students and leftists, if they are informed of that, are immediately opposed to it and frightened and scared. Some of them don't believe it. Some of them think that it's what's wrong with America. But responsible adults understand the absolute necessity of this. But just forget the necessity, just the factual basis, the factual truth. There is no match. There is nobody that comes close in the world to matching our economy and our military. And particularly, and that's true at any time, whether we're in a recession, whether we're in an economic slowdown, or now when we are in an economic upheaval and roaring along, there certainly is no match. And you add our military to it, there isn't any, folks, nobody is even close, and they all know it. But here's the difference. That's always the case. There has been no match for the American economy and no match for the American military my entire life. Nobody's even close. The Soviet Union was a third world economy with a first world military. And they could not sustain themselves. They were a nuclear threat, and that was it. But they had no morality acting as a foundation for their existence. They were destined to implode. What's different now is we have a president, we have a leader who has the gonads to use both of these, the economy and the military, to protect this country from little maggots around the world like this General Soleimani and ISIS and all the rest of it, because that's what they are. They're not even in our league. It is only our restraint and our acknowledgement of our status as the world's lone superpower and our morality, the fact that we are the good guys, that stops us from literally wiping the world out of these people. But if you hit us, we now have a leader who is going to make you pay the price for it. And this is frightening and scary to children on the left, frightening and scary to adults who are children on the left. They have no comprehension of deterrence, no comprehension of strength. To them, strength, confidence, ability, exceptional economy, exceptional military, those are all examples of how unfair it is. Around the world, it's not fair that America's so big. It's not fair that the rest of these people are so puny. It isn't fair. And so we should handcuff ourselves. We have no idea of the work, the sweat, the blood, the tears, the lives it took to achieve this status, this place in the world. To them, it's all the result of America being essentially a great crime. And I'm not exaggerating that in terms of how they view this. People like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Crazy Bernie and the rest of the Democrat candidates for president. The United States is an accident, Madeleine Albright. United States is a colonial evil. The United States destabilizes. Nothing could be further from the truth. No audible Democrat, no Democrat out there speaking right now understands that Donald Trump cannot lose any of these arguments that he's having with Iran or with North Korea. We cannot lose. If we decide to engage, we cannot lose. It's not up for grabs. Land and sea-based power, cruise missiles. The United States has these in theater in both cases. We have Hellfires, we have cruise missiles, we have the military agents of destruction ready to launch on North Korea and Iran or any other enemy on a moment's notice. Not from here, from there. We are everywhere, and we have the ability to project power unlike any other nation in the world. We have the ability to decalibrate the artillery that the North Koreans have aimed at South Korea from caves just north of the demilitarized zone. We could do this in 5 minutes. Talked to you yesterday about the two relatively new kinds of weapons that we have. One of them is a bomb that digs 200 feet down below the surface of the earth. Wipes out anything in caves, including guns, including bad guys. Bottom line is the United States could destroy every strategically relevant military and economic target in Iran in 30 minutes. If we wanted to do this, we could wipe that country out in 30 minutes. And we have been able to do this for years. Now, we don't talk about it. It's not part of the daily news cycle. But this is one of the reasons why the American left so despises America, because we do have this ability and nobody else does. And it's unfair, and it's a destabilization, it's lack of balance. But it's also the fact that they do not look at the United States as the good guys in the world. I'm not exaggerating. We have the ability to take out every meaningful strategic military target in Iran inside of 30 minutes. And everybody in our military knows it. And there's nothing they can do to stop it. Trump has made it clear that if there is any move by the Iranians to achieve nuclear military capability, same thing with North Korea, he's told both. He's not going to let them do it. He's going to strike. He has told them both. The North Koreans have made fools of previous presidents, and the Iranians have too. Trump literally is a new sheriff in town. He's demonstrating that he's not just a bunch of talk, not just a bunch of huffing and puffing. Now, the elimination of General Soleimani, General Soleimani, bolsters the mullahs' realization that Trump means what he says. In other words, the mullahs, everybody thinks the mullahs are mad, and we better be frightened, man. We really ticked them off. It's the other way around. The mullahs know damn well what we took out the guy within 30 seconds of him getting off of his airplane. We had intel on the ground. We had intel in the air. We had spies. We had GPS. We knew where this guy was every moment of the day. In the real world, this is the kind of thing that shakes up the bad guys, not makes them mad and should create fear in us. These Iranian threats of retaliation are pure rubbish. Any retaliation that they engage in is going to result in them being hit 10 times worse than whatever they dish out, and they know it. George W. Bush and Barack Hussein Obama Both had good records fighting terrorism, but they were both taken over the barrel by North Korea, as was Bill Clinton. The total failure of Bush's Iraq invasion, is Conrad Black writing, the total failure of the Bush-Iraq invasion was particularly evident last week as the country is largely now an Iranian satellite. And everybody knows that Obama gave away the store to Iran. And what's happening now, folks, is that President Donald Trump is taking it all back. We are not going to survive with the status quo. Trump is taking it all back. And the overwhelming majority of Americans are going to support the president. The Democrats have put their head in a noose, standing over the trap door, as they continue to side with enemies of this country because of their foggy view through the lens of hatred they have for Donald Trump.
Glad to see you're starting the new year right with Rush on the EIB network.
Something else we're going to delve into and explore today. The Democrat Party's getting really, really worried now that Bernie Sanders could win the Democrat nomination. And the thing to keep in mind about that is that the Obama administration people despise the guy, and they have they've not been able to stop him. And a lot of people, we all ought to be very concerned about it because the guy is nuts. He looks like this cranky old grandfather kind of Looney Tune that you tolerate at holidays. And he may be that, but he's also committed to this fully socialist agenda that would destroy everything we just described about the pinpoints of greatness in this country, great military, great economy. There is no way either literally survive as they are if somebody like Bernie Sanders is actually elected. And so we'll have to delve into that. Also, I made mention the fact yesterday that General Soleimani was flown back to Tehran in a cardboard box. There was no body. There were body parts. There was a hand with an identifiable ring. Flown back there on a box that was laid out across 3 coach seats in the Iranian airline. Well, it turns out now that this coffin, Soleimani's coffin, was later put on the hood of a Chevrolet truck, not a Toyota, a Chevrolet truck for part of his funeral procession. So Chevy got some product placement here, edging out Toyota, which is the official truck vehicle for Middle East terrorists. Saudi Arabian PR people tweeted that the American president's Soleimani's funeral was obvious. The American presence at his funeral. The Saudi PR guy noted that while the crowds were chanting, "Death to America! Death to America!" the #1 terrorist, Qasem Soleimani, was killed with an American-made drone, and his coffin was carried in an American-made car. So it looks like that Trump's mantra still stands, "Buy American." The Iranians clearly are, and they are transmitting the few remains of their gigantic hero in cardboard box coffins, on coach seats, and on the hood of Chevrolet trucks. On the cutting edge, societal evolution, Rush Limbaugh, and the most listened to radio talk show in the country. Great to have you here with us. So the president's 30 minutes of the program, it's actually 25 minutes, 20 minutes, ended the program. Didn't have a chance to discuss it afterwards. Did not have a chance to do a post-mortem, so we're going to do that now with the aid and assistance of Drive-By Media Reaction. Now, I can't even begin to share with you all of that reaction. There were hundreds of mentions of the Trump interview. Many in the Drive-By Media were livid that Trump appeared here and not with them, which is crazy. Trump spends more time with the drive-by media than any president in our memory. whether it be at NATO, whether it be on the South Lawn at the White House on the way to the helicopter. And the one thing the president stopped doing, and our old buddy CNN Jim Acosta mentioned this in a tweet, he's very upset about it. The formal White House press briefing has ended. It doesn't happen. There hasn't been one in over a year or close to it. And the drive-bys are very upset about this because that's when they got their faces on TV. And that's when they had their chance to try to embarrass the president, make big names for themselves. Now they don't get to do that. Now when Trump meets the press, it's all of them lined up on the driveway at the White House, shouting like a bunch of romper room six-year-olds. Mr. President, Mr. President, and you can't see them. All you see is Trump. And he looks like a maestro conducting the orchestra, pointing to this media person and pointing to that one, and telling this one to shut up, putting his index finger to his mouth. And he clearly, and he spends half an hour with them. I mean, this guy spends more time with the press than any previous president ever. And yet they're still complaining about lack of access and lack of this. So he shows up on this program yesterday, and many of them said that that's not right. He shouldn't come to places like this. He shouldn't come to places where he's supported. He shouldn't come to places where people that talk to him and interview him are friendly with it. It shouldn't happen. Well, I guess that would disqualify all of them from ever talking to Obama then, right? Because that's all it was a bunch of fawning, slavish hero worship. When the drive-by media spent time with Barack Hussein O. Now, you can tell these guys are bothered by the fact that he's on this program, not with them, very snarky about it. We have some audio sound bites to illustrate this. We'll start here at the top. There's another thing here about this. This interview had at least three. If this were a normal press-president relationship, there were three things the president said yesterday were genuine news. And they've ignored all of it, as they always do, in place of attacking him in the way they have become famous for. So here is a montage of a bunch of the drive-bys. And this montage is an example of how much they heard in the interview. Now, this is a sign of how great an interview it was. I wouldn't normally point that out. But this is how great an interview it was by how many different things the drive-by media heard in the interview.
With nothing else on his public schedule, President Trump called into Rush Limbaugh's radio show today to defend the U.S. airstrike.
The president told conservative talk show host Rush Limbaugh he's waiting to see what Iran does next.
On Rush Limbaugh's radio show, in a 20-minute conversation, Donald Trump brought up Barack Obama's name 4 times in the first 5 minutes.
During that interview, the president continued to defend his decision to take out that Iranian general.
President Trump saying that he took care of what the administrations under President Obama and President Bush didn't.
President Trump told Rush Limbaugh Soleimani should have been taken out a long time ago.
What he said with Rush Limbaugh, of course, making this about President Obama, familiar target.
He should have been taken out, as he said, 15 to 20 years ago.
President Trump speaking to Rush Limbaugh on his radio program, saying that Soleimani had it coming.
All right, so they have all these different takes of what happened to the interview yesterday. Here's Jonathan Karl on ABC's World News Tonight.
Conservative talk radio host Rush Limbaugh asked the president to explain why he ordered the strike when he did.
Could you explain to people why what you've done here makes us safer, why it was necessary, and why what we did was right?
He should have been taken out a long time ago, and we had a shot at it, and we took him out. And we're a lot safer now because of it.
But the president made no mention of an imminent threat.
It just kills these guys that the president was here. It kills these guys that your host, El Rushbo, the beloved radio talk show host, was asking the president questions. They think it's their God-given right to do this, their constitutional right. So you note the snark here, but the president made no mention of an imminent threat. No mention of an imminent threat. Have you listened to the Iranians making all the noise about what they're going to do next? It's all so predictable. Here's Brian Stelter at CNN saying that it's not normal. It's not normal for the president to do what he did yesterday, talking to a radio talk show host.
We need to recognize it's not normal. A strong administration, a confident administration, would want to answer lots of questions. But instead, the president right now is on the phone with Rush Limbaugh, his friend Rush Limbaugh, on the radio, giving rants, giving speeches. That's the way the president likes it. They could be winning back credibility, one true statement at a time, one piece of evidence at a time. That's what journalists do every day. If we make a mistake, we correct it. We try to get better every day. And unfortunately, this administration doesn't seem to want to win back credibility. Instead, President Trump wants to stay in his bunker, his Rush Limbaugh talk radio, Fox News bunker.
I mean, this is... So they cannot help but turn it around and make it about them. We journalists, we try to get better every day. We try to win credibility back every day. We try to do one true statement at a time. That's what the president ought to be. So by virtue of appearing here, the president was not being truthful. See? By virtue of appearing on this program, the president was being dishonest. The president didn't have to even be credible. These guys... It's hard to believe. In this instance, Donald Trump's yesterday appearing on this program talking to his base. And you know, can I tell you something about this, folks? There is, and I don't know what percentage of it, but there's a percentage of Trump's base that's not happy with this Iranian stuff. There's a percentage of Trump's base that doesn't want any more U.S. engagement overseas, military engagement. Been there, done that. Waste of resources over there, not our problem, especially now that we're energy independent. It's not our problem. Now, I don't know what percentage of Trump's base is upset about this, but there are some in the Trump base who think that this is not exactly what the president promised when he was campaigning in 2016. And there are also some people who think the president has squandered something. Every president strives for the old axiom of peace and prosperity. If you can lay claim as president to your presidency, your time being a time of peace and prosperity, nobody can beat you. And we've got the prosperity in spades, and we have the peace in spades. We're not at war. And Donald Trump is the only president in the modern era who has not started a war. Until this hit on Soleimani. So now the question comes now, okay, was this starting a war, or is this ending a war? Is it starting a war, or is it involvement in a war that has been going on for who knows how long, and it's time that the people who have been committing atrocities against our people get paid back for it? I mean, you can look at it in a number of ways. I don't look at this as starting a war, but there are clearly some Trump supporters that probably do. So the president comes here. This is an election year. He's got to have his base. If he doesn't have his base, then all the rest of it's academic. So it's not the president seeking safety and security coming here. It's tactical and strategic. A good percentage of this audience is Trump voters, Trump base. He doesn't know, nobody knows how many of them maybe don't support this. Comes here to explain it. Makes all the sense in the world. This is not cowardice. This is not refusing tough questions. President obviously felt that it was worth his time to appear on a program that he's confident reaches a bunch of his voters. It makes absolutely perfect sense. So the question would have to be put to you. If you're in the camp that thinks this is a big strategic mistake and a waste of American resources, did the president convince you yesterday that this is worth our while or not? This is not, wasted 30 minutes showing up with some friendly host throwing softballs at him. This is maintaining the base. This is all part of the re-election strategery of 2016. Anybody knows in politics, if you don't hold your base, all the rest of it becomes sort of meaningless. Here's Don Lemon, the smartest man, dumbest man on television, and that's a tough competition now. You've got Fredo out there, you've got Don Lemon, you got half the CNN roster and 75% of the MSNBC roster is in the competition for dumbest person on TV. So out of everything that happened in this interview yesterday, here's what Don Lemon on his show on CNN last night took away from it.
This is what he told right-wing talk show host Rush Limbaugh today about Qasem Soleimani.
He's a terrorist. He was designated a terrorist by President Obama, and then Obama did nothing about it.
Okay, so if watching, if you're Rush, whoever, anyone who's watching, say it with me, everyone. Barack Obama is not president anymore.
Thank God.
Come on, we can say it together. Barack Obama is not president anymore.
Thank God.
He's not the president anymore.
Thank
Obama's
God.
been out of office for nearly 3 years.
Thank God.
President Trump owns this crisis. Another one of his own making.
So you see, all Trump had to do was mention Obama. These guys are going to go to their political graves doing everything they have to defend the Obama legacy, the Obama administration, including the Iran nuclear deal. And so here's Trump attacking Obama. Don Lemon thinks it's irrelevant. Obama's not president. He was for 8 years, and there are a lot of remnants of the Obama regime that have to be cleaned up, and this is one of them. It's exactly what Trump said. It's not hard to understand. So Lemon cannot refute the president substantively. Instead, he can't get over mentioning Obama. Well, let me tell you, everybody follow me along now. Barack Obama is not president. Let me tell you one more time. Barack Obama is, well, he was, and we're still paying the price for it in a whole lot of ways, like immigration and health care and economics. And a bunch of the stuff that he did is in the process of being reversed and fixed, including this stuff. Back in a second. Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. Rush Limbaugh here behind the golden EIB microphone. Don Serber wrote a blog post at his blog post, donserberblogpost.com, donserber.blogpost.com. It's a miniature review of Trump's appearance here yesterday. And he pointed out that Trump saying that this should have been done 15 to 20 years ago, taking out Soleimani. In Don Serber's view, that is major news. Should have been page one news. The media has been chomping at the bit to get to Trump to ask him why he did this. And he answered it here. And he said that should have been done 15, 20 years ago. This guy's been taking out Americans, been murdering Americans, IEDs, plotting the attacks. The last one on the embassy in Baghdad. This stuff's got to stop. That should be page one news, but it isn't page one news because they didn't get it. We did here at the EIB Network. So instead, they talk about all this. Trump chose a safe place. Trump couldn't stop talking about Obama. Serber also pointed out what he thought was another intriguing piece or portion of the interview. Pull quote, Limbaugh later set Trump up perfectly, asking, a lot of things had to surprise you when you assumed office and found out some things that had been done previously in policy. What was the purpose of American policy with Iran prior to you taking office? And Trump said, I don't think they had a purpose. I don't think they knew what was happening. Why did Obama give them $150 billion, much of it going back into terror? If you look at what's happening, when I first came to office, I went to the Pentagon. They showed me 18 sites of confliction, meaning conflict, over there. And every one of them was started by Iran. Either their soldiers or they paid for soldiers for hire. I have no idea what they tried to do with appeasement, meaning the Obama administration and previous administrations. And Trump says death to America's, it's not just a slogan. It's added up to 18 little wars. Now, Serber thinks this should have been front page news as well, the president pointing this out. You know, here's a question for you. And the president tore into John Kerry yesterday. He literally tore in, and the drive-bys have totally ignored that. But he tore into John Kerry as essentially being a co-conspirator with Iran in their ability to nuke up. I don't care what you think of Trump, and I don't care what you think of Kerry, a president of the United States saying that. about a former Secretary of State is news, and they totally ignore. Why did they ignore that? Why didn't they run with that and make fun of Trump? I think it's obviously because they don't even want to. They don't want to go. What was that $150 billion for? Have you seen, ladies and gentlemen? Have you seen some of the tweets that suggest that the Iranians were using some of that money to blackmail or pay off Americans to support the Iranian nuclear deal? Now, Trump did not mention that, so don't anybody confuse me here or confuse what I'm saying. But there are a lot of people who go, Obama drops off $150 billion, $1.8 billion in cash on the pallets. Well, for what? Well, if the Iranians are paying people off around the world, Great Britain, United States, whatever, to support the Iranian nuclear deal, that could be one of the sources of the money. I tell you, what I have learned and seen about the way things operate in the so-called establishment around the world, European Union, you name it, nothing like that would surprise me anymore. And it wasn't that long ago that anybody who said that, I would poo-poo it as an insane conspiracy theory. Got to take a break. Back after this. Don't go away.
Rush Limbaugh.
By the way, this is not the theme song to the movie Men in Black. Well, it may be, but that's not its original. It's a song by Patrice Rushen called Forget Me Nots. Anyway, I meant to get the phone calls in the last segment. Of course, I bombed out. So I owe you. That'll happen soon in the next hour. Yes, right here we are, back at it, my friends. Rush Limbaugh, doing what I was born to do, hosting the EIB network on the radio. Great to be with you. Telephone number, 800-282-8882. And if you're on hold, please be patient. Just a few more minutes because we're going to start on the phones pretty quickly. Just one more thing I want to do. Play a little game. I mentioned to you in the opening monologue of the first hour, about an hour ago, that our good friend and colleague, Brit Hume at Fox News, thinks I went a little overboard in comparing the Democrats to the Iranians in terms of their vitriolic comments about President Trump and our action against General Soleimani. It happened last night. Shannon Bream was doing her Fox News at Night with Shannon Bream show. And she had on the Fox News Channel senior political analyst. Do I need a title like this? You know, these people have titles. Senior political analysts, senior political director correspondent, chief congressional correspondent, House office building. Do I need a title? Probably not. Just my name tells everybody everything they need to know, right? I don't need a title. Anyway, these guys all have titles. Well, Trump is the de facto head of the Republican Party. This is Trump's party. I might have been at one point the titular head. But Trump, no. This is Trump's party. Look, one of the reasons there are titles, I must be honest, one of the reasons there are titles is that's how people get raises. That is how corporations categorize pay scales. Well, you can sit in there and laugh all you want, but every corporate demon that is listening to me knows full well what I'm talking about. You've got the senior vice president, area vice president, senior vice president of vice presidents. You've got, depending on how large the corporation is, an interminable number of titles. And getting a new title, i.e. promotion, is one of the ways they categorize compensation and pay raises. So let's see, Brit Hume here is senior political analyst. That means some people are not senior. There's just regular political analysts. There's inferior political analysts. There is trainee political analyst. Intern political analyst. But Brit Hume is senior political analyst at Fox News. And Shannon Bream asked him about the death of the Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani to set things up. she introduced and played a clip of me from yesterday's program.
I want to play a little bit of Rush Limbaugh today, talking about the reaction from the left in a number of quarters to the death of Qasem Soleimani, who is unmistakably responsible for the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands of Americans, thousands of other people of all ethnicities and backgrounds, but including, yes, American lives. Here's what Rush Limbaugh said today in talking with the president about reaction.
In the past 2 or 3 days since the attack on Soleimani, you literally have the Democrat Party and elements of that party openly supporting Iran, an enemy of the United States, openly supporting the terrorist actions of that country. And this is a country that beheads homosexuals and transgenders and has no human rights for the very constituency the Democrat Party claims to represent. I don't know what's arguable about that. I mean, the Democrat... All of these little millennials and these AOC types, they do think that Iran is superior. I've got a story right here. Ocasio-Cortez accuses monster Trump of engaging in war crimes over Iran threats. You know, Trump has threatened to hit their cultural sites. They don't have any cultural sites. Cultural sites are military installations. We already got rid of their cultural sites. It happened a long time ago. I'm half jesting here, but the point is that here you've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez accusing Trump of being a monster for engaging in war crimes in Iran. Another headline, AOC likes tweet from Russian state media claiming Iran doesn't target civilians. You know, so our good buddies, the Russians, are out tweeting that, I don't know what Trump's talking about, Iran does not target civilians. Well, they're only the Middle Eastern state sponsor of terrorism, and by definition, it attacks civilians. What the hell do you think a suicide bomb is? But here's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out liking and retweeting the Russian tweet that Iran doesn't kill civilians. So this is not an out-of-bounds thing to say, and the Iranians do. If they identify homosexuals or transgenders, they're dead. You talk about people having to live in the closet someplace in Iran. This is no joke about this, and the very people in this country who support all of that, these expanded lifestyles, out there praising Iran. It's just ignorant. So anyway, here's Brit Hume's response to that soundbite.
The trouble with that is that it's like a lot of stuff you hear is he has the point in the sense that the Democratic Party does not seem to be at all happy, broadly speaking, about the death of this terrorist mastermind whose departure from this earth will weaken Iran and its terrorist ambitions. But at the same time, it is not quite fair to say that the Democratic Party is openly supporting Iran. That's too strong. They have been weak in supporting our president, to be sure, but openly supporting Iran, too strong.
Well, maybe the tweets that I saw over the weekend I didn't see. And maybe the caterwauling from elected Democrats over the weekend that I saw, maybe they didn't happen. I just don't pull this stuff out of my top hat. Don't even have one of those. I don't pull it out of my back pocket and just throw it out there. In fact, this isn't anything new. Back when Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was the president of Iran, you couldn't tell the difference between what he was saying about Bush and what the Democrats were saying about Bush. Anyway, we thought we would play a little game here. We're going to go side by side, A-B comparison. And you tell me if I may be overstating that. Up first is Javad Zarif. He is the Iranian foreign minister. He was on CNN this morning, said this about Trump's warning to Iran if they attack the United States.
Attacking cultural sites is a war crime. But has he made U.S. more secure? Do Americans feel more secure? Are Americans welcome today in this region? Do they feel welcome?
And here is Democrat presidential candidate Pocahontas Warren.
We now have a president who is tweeting threats of war crimes. We've had to pull all of the Americans out of the area, all the civilians. This is not making America safer.
Iranian or Democrat? You decide. What? What are you saying? You're trying to just, you can't figure it out. I may need some more time on this. Well, okay. Here is Javad Zarif. Attacking cultural sites is a war crime, but it's made the U.S. more secure. I don't think so. Do the Americans feel more secure? Are Americans welcome today in this region? Do they feel when I went on my troop visit to Afghanistan, I flew over, landed in Dubai, spent a couple of days there recalibrating time zones and all that. I got on a UN plane and could not fly over Iran. Now, this is back in the early 2000s. We could not fly over Iran because they were threatening to shoot down anything that wasn't theirs. Feel safe in the region. Nobody going to Afghanistan in ways I had to get there. We had to fly around Iran, up through Pakistan, other places to get it. It added hours to the trip. Feel secure in the region. Okay, so Pocahontas, we now have a president who is tweeting threats of war crimes. That's exactly what the Iranians do. Another one. Here's Bernie Sanders last night on CNN. Anderson Cooper questioned Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut tweeted that targeting cultural sites is what terrorists do. Do you agree with it?
It is a war crime. And to be learning from the Taliban about destroying cultural sites is unbelievable. And the idea of spending trillions of dollars more on an endless war in Iran is, to me, just beyond comprehension.
Okay, here's another soundbite. Is this a Democrat or is this an Iranian?
He is prepared to commit war crimes. He has killed people of this region. He has spent $1 trillion. He said that the U.S. had wasted $7 trillion in our region. He has added another $1 trillion. Is the United States more secure today because of that?
So who's that? Is that a Democrat or is that a... No, you're wrong. It's not a Democrat, although it may as well be. That, again, is Javad Zarif. He is the Iranian foreign minister. Crazy Bernie, it's a war crime to be learning from the Taliban about destroying cultural sites. Unbelievable. The idea of spending trillions of dollars more on an endless war in Iran is beyond comprehension. Here comes the Iranian. He is prepared to commit war crimes. He has killed people in this region. He has spent $1 trillion. He said he would just have wasted $7 trillion in our region. He has added another trillion. You said more secure today because of that. You can't tell the difference here other than the accents. I mean, nobody would ever confuse Crazy Bernie from being from Tehran. And one more. Here is Pencil Neck. On December 18th, on the floor of the House during debate on the articles of impeachment.
When Donald J. Trump was sworn in on January 20th, 2017, he repeated these words: "I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States." Has he lived up to that sacred obligation? Has he honored his oath of office? Has he preserved, protected, and defended the Constitution of the United States? The uncontested evidence provides the simple yet tragic answer: he has not. In America, no one is above the law.
The uncontested evidence? There isn't any evidence. There never has been any evidence for any allegation these people have mounted. At any rate, so that's Adam Schiff. And here now is the next voice. Tell me, is this an Iranian or is this a Democrat?
We are law-abiding people. We're not lawless like President Trump. He is destroying the U.S. Constitution. He is destroying the U.S. political process. He is destroying the rule of law in the United States.
You tell me. That again is the Iranian foreign minister, Zavi Zarif, or whatever. You tell me the difference between these guys and the Democrats. You can't. In case of Schiff and this guy, that's almost word for word verbatim. We in Iran are law-abiding people. We are not lawless like President Trump. He is destroying the Constitution like he cares. He is destroying the U.S. political process. He is destroying the rule of law in the United States. Exactly what Schiff and his cronies are out saying. Isn't any difference? And it's not a stretch to claim that the Democrats sound like an echo chamber of the Iranians, and it's not new. Here, one more before we go to the break. This is kind of unreal. CBS This Morning correspondent Elizabeth Palmer is interviewing the Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif. She says there are reports that the supreme leader, meaning the Ayatollah Khamenei, who they all eminently respect, they wouldn't say one negative thing about the Ayatollah. Even if he had a private club and a golf course, which he doesn't, they wouldn't ridicule this guy at all. Remember when Mike Wallace interviewed the Ayatollah Khomeini? 60 Minutes, 25, 30 years. Remember that? Imam. Most respectful thing you've ever seen. Nobody in the U.S. interviews Trump this way. Anyway, here's the question from Elizabeth Palmer. There are reports that the supreme leader has ordered that any revenge attacks should be proportional and carried out by Iranian forces.
We are a law-abiding nation. When we take action, it won't be disproportionate, unlike what President Trump has said. There has been the killing of several Iranian citizens and several top-ranking, high-ranking Iranian military officers. That is what we will do, and we will do it not in a cowardly way, but in a clear and proportionate way.
When?
As we choose.
She's wanting him to do it. She's sitting there, she's wearing the hijab, or the hijab. What is she wearing? The hijab. He's wearing the hijab. Imam, when are you going to hit Americans? When? When is it going to happen? We want to be there. When you hit them. Don't tell me that it is overboard to compare the Democrats and the Iranian rhetoric. Let's see. All right, grab one more. We have time for one more before we go to the break. State Department today, Pompeo had a press conference, Secretary of State, and he mocked, this claim here that the Iranians have made, that General Soleimani was on a peace mission. That's what the Iranians, he was on a peace mission, having just orchestrated the bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. So a reporter said Iran's foreign minister granted an interview saying that Soleimani was on a diplomatic visit to Iraq, that the U.S. strike to take him out was state terrorism, that President Trump is prepared to commit war crimes, that Iranians are enraged. What's your reaction to this?
His first statement that is Soleimani was traveling to Baghdad on a diplomatic mission. Anybody here believe that? Is there any history that would indicate that it was remotely possible that this kind gentleman, this diplomat of great order, Qasem Soleimani, had traveled to Baghdad for the idea of conducting a peace mission? I made you reporters laugh this morning. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
we know that wasn't true.
I made you reporters laugh. That's fantastic. We know that wasn't true. Yeah. Anyway, okay, quick timeout, and we will return. We'll get started on the phones. I appreciate all of you that are on hold waiting. It's coming right up. Hi, welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, meeting and surpassing all audience expectations all the time. Here is Alan in Chicago as we start. Thank you very much for waiting, Alan. Hi.
Rush, it's great talking to you. Rush, Iran's not going to take us on. Iran has a $20 billion budget for their defense. We have an $800 billion budget. They won't attack us directly. What they'll do is use their surrogates. They'll go after the 60,000 troops we have in the Middle East, go after private installations. And mind you, that's 60,000 is 3 times what we have in terms of border agents. I think, though, that the president should accept the Iranian invitation to leave and force the Europeans to act, because my big concern, sir, is China. China's been building a navy, an air force, and nuclear forces, and, of course, and the president has begun to address that, they have satellite defenses that we have not countered, and we have to, begin to deal with. To paraphrase something that Harold Brown once said vis-a-vis the Soviet Union, their nuclear policy, they build, we build. They stop building, we build. What it is with China is we fight, they build. We keep fighting, they build. And that's my biggest concern. That and the fact that the rest of the world, Japan spends less than 2% of their GDP on defense, less than 1%, in fact. Europe about a half of what we do. No one seems to want to take on the battles other than us, and the strain it's putting on us is just it's going to undermine our economy ultimately.
So, to perfect, you think the Chinese are biding their time, waiting while we distract ourselves,
with a smile as broad as it can be, sir.
right? And we are engaging ourselves in areas of the world that really are not that relevant. In the Middle East, I mean, we're energy independent. Meanwhile, the Chicoms literally are expanding all over the world. They are buying up and building properties in Africa. In parts of that kind of people don't even know about yet.
South America, right in our backyard. We have to be concerned about what they're doing to position their military. You know, we are focused on the wrong thing, and I think Donald Trump is right in wanting to get out of the Middle East, but Europe will have to deal with the consequences of that. India will have to deal with the consequences of that. The Saudis will, and let them step up and take that responsibility. It's their turn.
I understand that, but I just don't think any of them can. The Europeans can.
They certainly can. Europe's economy is larger than ours. They spend...
I'm not talking about their economy. I'm talking about their will. I'm talking about that. Look, they're led by a bunch of left-wing wusses.
Amen. You got that right. Absolutely.
Look, I got a break coming up. I want to ask you more about China Chicoms and what you think their ultimate objective is because while they're smiling and biding their time, they're not standing still. So you're right about this. But I don't think Trump's unaware of it. So hang on. We'll continue here with just a moment. Well, it's too bad out there. Alan from Chicago is no longer with us. Either hung up or he got disconnected or one of the two. Look, it is anytime something like this happens, anytime the United States extends itself militarily, responds to an attack, initiates one, you're always going to have, we're wasting our time. It's the Chicoms that are big threat. Waste their time. It's the Soviets that are big threat. So you're always going to have that some people who will make a comment on that. And the Iranians are chump change. They don't have any big defense budget. We can handle Iranians like you said we can. In 30 minutes, everything that matters to them is gone. Look, the Chinese are formidable, and they look at us as an enemy. But it's tempered by the fact, folks, the world needs the U.S. market. I don't care what anybody says. Money makes everything go around, and if you resent that, it's too bad. I mean, it does. And the United States economy is the market that the world will not lose. So a military strike that would wipe out the United States, that's not something that the Chicoms would have in mind. Now, not to say they wouldn't use military strikes. They could take out, if they wanted to show force, they could hit military installations all throughout the Pacific, ours. They could try to take out some aircraft, any number of things to show their ability and so forth. But then the risk involved in doing that is such, and if they think that such military action is not necessary to achieve their goals, then they'll never take it anyway. But they are ramping up to be able to project power. They're ramping up to be seen as having the ability to project power. It's a deterrence. And they're no doubt competing with us in this region. Now, we've got trade negotiations going on now. And I think, the president likes Xi Jinping. And he thinks that he can succeed in rearranging the trade deals or the trade agreements that we have that can result in the current disadvantages that we experience, which are purposeful, be reversed. But I guess the point is, the Chinese are not sneaking up on us. It's not as though that we hit General Soleimani, meaning that we're distracted and not aware of what the Chicoms are doing. And this is the point that a lot of people try to make. We're really misfocused here, Rush. We're working here on the Iranians or in the Middle East, and that's really not the problem. The Chicoms inching up on it. They're buying property everywhere, building all those islands off the coast of the mainland. We know all of this. They're not sneaking up on anybody. We got spies. They've got spies. We have cyber abilities. They do. So I don't want anybody to get the impression that the Chi-Coms are sneaking up on us and making advances that we're not aware of and that we're not prepared to repel or to deal with. Certainly not this administration, by the way. Chris in Vancouver in Canada, great to have you. Thank you for calling, sir. Welcome to the EIB network.
Hey, Rush. First, I want to say, even as a centrist Democrat, someone who calls himself a centrist Democrat, I prefer your show over Don Lemon's show any day of the week. As far as I'm concerned, Don Lemon's show is not even a show, really. Anyways,
well, you know, wait a minute. You're in the sense that this isn't a show either. It is a program. Now, I can convert it into a show for 10 minutes or 15 or 20, but in a strict definition, this is a program, not a show.
You have the ability to make it a show. That's my point. I also, speaking of left-right stuff, I was curious. I was very surprised to see, and I was curious if you were surprised at all that you got named Man of the Decade by that magazine. It was sort of a surprise to me.
That I was named Man of the Decade by a magazine?
Yeah, it was a Bloated Red Blowhard magazine.
Bloated Blow. Unfamiliar with this award. I get so many that I can't keep track of them. I've not heard of Bloated Blowhard magazine.
You're a goon. You're going to go down in history as one of the all-time goons. I'll see you later, pal.
Oh, this was a seminar caller. Aha. Well, what was his original point? Why? What? You took it off too quick. What was his? Okay. See, I knew we spend too much on military aidism. Okay. Well, that should have told you that this guy was a classic statistic. Here is where are we going next? Sherman, Texas. This is David. Greetings. Welcome to the EIB network. Hello.
Hi, Rush. I'm going to apologize for that guy. I'm sorry. I'm worried that House Democrats are going to now pass legislation that will limit President Trump's ability to defend us and engage preemptively. And we cannot wait on Congress to declare war because, you know, a supersonic ICBM could reach us in 10 minutes delivering nuclear warheads.
Okay, this is another great example. When I come up and say that there's no difference in the Iranians and the Democrats, oh, that's going a little too far. Who is it that's trying to handcuff the president in a potential situation you described as defending the country? It's the Democrats.
Yeah, and they're threatening now to limit his power, and that could just spell the end of everything. It's unbelievable.
It is totally believable. This is it shouldn't surprise you. I made the point yesterday. I made a prediction yesterday. All of this stuff is eventually going to get folded into their impeachment effort. And lo and behold, let me grab the, let's see here, grab soundbite number 41. I predicted this. I predicted this yesterday, that they were going to open up impeachment hearings in the House. They're going to fold this whole Iranian stuff into it. And this afternoon on PMSNBC, Pencil Neck showed up with Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington. And this is, it's all about John Bolton has said that he will testify if subpoenaed by the Senate. So that's its own separate story. This has ignited the Democrats once because they think what Bolton is saying is, hey, I'll come in and I'll unload on Trump if you subpoena me. I can't wait. That's what they think Bolton is saying. They are so excited. They think Bolton is ready to turn tail. They think Bolton is ready to come in and unload on Trump and tell him everything about Russian collusion and Ukrainian phone call and whatever else. The Steele dossier that's true. Whatever they dream about being true, they think Bolton is signaling that he's ready to come in and turn on Trump. So Andrea Mitchell is asking Pencil Neck about this, and this is what he said.
We haven't taken that off the table. I think what makes the most sense, though, frankly, Andrea, is for him to testify in the Senate trial. I do think that the pause in sending the articles has had a very salutary effect in fleshing out McConnell and making it clear that he is working in cahoots with the president as part of this cover-up. And fleshing out where the moderate Republican senators are. The only thing that was clear from John Bolton up till now was that if we subpoenaed him, he would sue us, and it would take ultimately years in court before we could secure his testimony. So I think the pause has had a very important impact. It'll be up to the Speaker when the time is right to transmit those articles.
Will you subpoena Bolton? We haven't taken that off the table. This is about a number of things, but they want to fold this impeachment stuff, or fold this Iranian stuff into the impeachment on the basis that Trump is unfit, that he is engaging in misconduct. And, of course, now they're saying, well, he didn't get our permission. He didn't come in and use the War Powers Act, and we want to limit what he can do in the future. I have a different view of people who are worried about this. Let them do this stuff. They are in the process, folks, of finally telling everybody who they are. And I don't mind them doing it. The common sense reaction right now is when Schiff or any of these guys come out and says, or anybody else in the Democrats, Pelosi, we need to limit what Trump can do. Trump is only acting to defend the United States. Everybody in the world knows this. Everybody in this country knows this. They want to limit this president's ability. A lot of people lose track because we get caught up in all this and we go moment to moment to moment. But the cumulative effect of the Democrats and their efforts unending to get Trump that are now into their fourth year has not been lost on people. I'm talking about average, ordinary Americans who are watching this, and I still think that there are millions of them that just continue to seethe in various stages of anger over this. Now, substantively, yeah, this is dire consequences and serious if they actually would succeed in being able to limit. But there's this thing called the Constitution. They're not going to be able to pull this off. They can huff and puff about it. They can talk about it. I can give you examples in history. Thomas Jefferson. Let's go back to Thomas Jefferson waged war against the Barbary pirates in Africa, the early days of Islamic terrorists. And Jefferson did this without any consent from Congress whatsoever, and there are countless other examples of this. So it's just more huffing and puffing. And it is ultimately an admission by the Democrats that they are impotent. There's not a thing they have been able to do to stop Trump. Why do you think this is going to work? They haven't been able to stop him. They haven't been able to stop his agenda. Folks, even immigration, do you realize the massive change? I started to get into this yesterday. Let me explain to you some of the things that have happened in immigration under the radar nobody's talking about because there are other things taking precedence. But I'll do that when we get back. Don't go away. Listen. Greetings and welcome back. It's Rush Limbaugh. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Okay, now we're in an election year, and as such, people think that the president's not going to get anything done because the Democrats run the House. They're not going to permit any kind of legislative or policy victory during an election year. Well, imagine, if you will, and I'm just throwing this out there. Imagine, if you will, the president finds a way to have a couple of pretty big successes in both immigration and in health care. You know, when you strip it all away, those are two things that a majority of Americans are very concerned about, and especially health care, and especially with the Democrat presidential candidates and this big push that many of them have to take away employer-provided insurance and replace it with single-payer Medicare for all. The amount of money it would cost. People like their health care that they get from work. It's something they know. It's something that's been the case for years. There's a system for it. And 160 million Americans get their health insurance at work. The Democrats are running around talking about taking that away in the interest of fairness and equity and making sure everybody is on one system. And the amount of money this would cost is in the 30s of trillions. We don't have it. Immigration. Have you wondered what became of the caravans? There was a period of time last year where you couldn't open a newspaper, turn on cable news without hearing about all these gigantic caravans, massive numbers of Central American people fleeing their native countries, trying to get into the United States. The Democrats were out there showing pictures, supposedly, of Trump putting kids in cages. The pictures were actually from 2014, the Obama administration. There are massive things that have already taken place in immigration. Nobody knows about it because they're not being reported on. It's ultimately going to be the job of the Trump administration or campaign to publicize these things. But let me just give you an example. Do you know that catch and release has ended? You didn't know that. There is no more catch and release. This was an Obama administration, and in many administrations prior to it was a favorite. Catch and release was tantamount to admitting we can't control it. Okay, so they get in illegally, and we'll catch them, and then we'll just release them. And we've obeyed the law. We've caught people behaving, but we haven't deported them. Catch and release. You know what's happening? In the old days, catch and release would result in the people being caught being released into the interior of the country to get lost, to then take up residence in the quote-unquote shadows, and to be part of this mysterious numbers of millions supposedly someday seeking amnesty. Well, those people are not being released anymore because there is no more catch and release. And it's widely known. One of the reasons there is not this everyday gigantic mass of humanity at the border is because they know getting in does not automatically mean they're going to be released to get lost. The numbers of illegal immigrants getting into the country is way down, and it's happened without a wall, without a physical wall. The president has also succeeded in negotiating new deals with Mexico and the Central American countries where they have pledged to help stop illegal immigration. Have you heard of it? There's a program called Remain in Mexico. You know what it is? It means anybody from Central America, El Salvador, Guatemala, traveling through Mexico to get here stays in Mexico. Mexico is no longer sending them north without obstruction. And this program, the Remain in Mexico program, has sent 60,000 illegal aliens back to Mexico, where they are awaiting immigration hearings, not here in the United States. And this is big, and it has been happening for a while. It doesn't get reported, obviously. It's happening, in a sense, under the radar, even though it's not. I know about it. It's not happening under the radar. Mexico, you can see, they're doing more to solve illegal immigration, finally, than Congress is. And you haven't heard a word about it. The president's having successes like these throughout in an election year, and you're going to be hearing about this as the days and weeks, months unfurl. I got to take a break. Up against it here. Back in a minute. Hi, and welcome back. It's so great to be with you folks every day. I look forward to it, and I actively appreciate the opportunity each and every day. Happy to have you here. 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, send an email. I check those. lrushbo@eibnet.us. Look, there's other stuff here about the Iranian situation and the Quds Force Commander, Qasem Soleimani. But I want to move on to some of the other things. I've teased you with some of this data at the beginning of the program. The Democrat Party right now they're very worried, folks, about Crazy Bernie. Up till now, amazingly so, the front runner, without any question about it, has been Biden. There have been pockets of surprise here and there. You've had Bloomberg get in, show up at number 3 after a very little time in the campaign. The big news that Judge Judy is going to join Bloomberg out on the campaign trail. Anything can happen, but I don't see Bloomberg getting the Democrat nomination. He's not radical left enough. Well, he actually is, but they don't know it. But he's not going to get it. There's one big reason why he's not going to get it, and it has nothing to do with policy. It has nothing to do with party. It has nothing to do with politics. And I don't even want to tell you why, because, yeah, that's it. It doesn't have a prayer. He doesn't have a prayer. Because of one thing that has nothing to do with policy, party, politics, anything of the sort. It may be unfair, it may be unjust, but it is a reality that exists today in our TV culture. He does not have a prayer. Doesn't matter how much money he spends, he doesn't have a prayer. Well, he might have a prayer, depending on who he prays to, but it's such a long shot that it's practically a safe bet to be impossible. What's happening out there instead is that Crazy Bernie is creeping up. And this has people in the Democrat Party nervous as they can be. And on the Obama side, they're livid. They don't like this guy at all. The Obama administration, Obamaites, Obama supporters have no love whatsoever for Crazy Bernie. So let's go through some of these stories. Up first is from it says New Week. Here, it's actually this is the old Newsweek magazine, which you talk about being obscure. They're it, but their headline, nevertheless, interesting discussion. Bernie Sanders dominates Democrat candidates among college voters, according to a new poll. And there's a poll that was I saw it during the break, that a majority of high school students, I don't know if it's a majority, a significant percentage of high school students love socialism, which led some people to ask, well, how is that possible? How is that possible? Who the hell's teaching them? What do you think? What do you think most teachers coming out of college today are? I mean, look, it makes perfect logical sense. If you have people that are sympathetic to socialism and communism, and they are teachers, and they are teaching students, is it any surprise the students would end up being sympathetic? Throw out everything you know about the evils and the ravages of socialism and communism. Throw it out. You have to assume the people we're talking about don't know a thing about it like you do. All they know is what they've been taught about it, how fair it is, and how equitable it is, how equal it is, how nobody's made fun of and nobody's laughed at. Nobody's better than anybody else. Everybody has the same amount of stuff and everybody's concerned about the same things. There's no competition, there's no winners, there's no losers. This is what young people have been taught socialism is. And communism's even better. So a poll here, this is the Chegg election tracker of Democrat Party leading undergraduates across the U.S., saw Bernie Sanders close out the year 38% support. Now, in addition to holding the most support of Democrat or Democrat-leading college students, several general election polls last month also showed Bernie defeating Donald Trump. There was an Axios poll released in early December, found that Bernie Sanders pulled 22.5% from college students of all political affiliations. Trump came in second, 17.3%. Pocahontas third place, 15.9%. Biden has fallen to fourth place among college students with just 9%. Oh, that reminds me. before I forget it, let me dig down into another stack. Have you heard the latest story on Hunter Biden? Oh, yeah. The what stuff? Yeah, he's stealing. This is worse than we even thought it was. Let's see. What did I... the minute, I want to find it, it's either stuck together with something and I can't find it, or... I printed... I got to get to this, too. There is a Columbia University law professor who has written the most embarrassing piece about his struggle, whether or not to bring a child into the world with climate change on the verge of destroying the Earth's ability to support life. Is it fair? Some of the stuff in this is just scary. It's insane scary, but that's... Let me find the Hunter Biden stuff. What did I put in the Hunter? Oh, you know what? It may be in the first stack here when I put the crazy Bernie stuff. Obama world hates Bernie. Has no idea how to stop him. And this is the Daily Beast. This is a left-wing website. Chelsea Clinton. Look at this. Chelsea Clinton reaps $9 million from corporate board position. Chelsea Clinton has been paid $9 million in compensation since 2011 for serving on the board of an internet investment company, according to Barron's, the financial publication. Now, why isn't this white privilege? Well, I'll tell you why it's not white privilege, because it's Democrat privilege. That is exactly what this is, Democrat privilege. The mediocre, unaccomplished sons and daughters of Democrats who get this kind of cash thrown at them, even though they are below average achievers. Let's see, where's the Hunter Biden? Here it is. Hunter Biden linked to 2016 identity theft involving his dead brother. Newly submitted court documents link Hunter Biden, the son of Plugs, to an identity theft case from 2016 when he was allegedly being checked into an unidentified Arizona facility. Court papers cite a Prescott, Arizona police report describe what allegedly happened on the morning of October 28, 2016, when a Hertz rental car employee reportedly got a phone call around 10 in the morning and discovered suspicious items inside one of the rental cars. Stolen identities were used to check defendant Robert Hunter Biden into an Arizona facility and provide false statements to the Prescott Police Department, the document states. These stolen identities include his dead brother, Joseph R. Bo Biden III, and Joseph McGee. An attorney for Robert Hunter Biden did not immediately respond to Fox Business request for comment. His brother, who went by the name of Bo Biden, died in 2015. So he not only took his dead brother's widow, he took his dead brother's identity. This is a guy up to his neck in it in Ukraine. And, of course, we're not allowed to go there. We're not allowed to look into this. No way. That's persecuting Joe Biden is nothing but a great citizen and a great servant of the public. Man, oh, man. Sometimes the news in the stack of stuff is just too good to be true. Washington Examiner, editorial. Bernie Sanders is not a joke. He's dangerous. Pundits wrote off Senator Sanders' campaign back in October after his heart attack evoked the risks of nominating a candidate who would turn 80 during the first year of his presidency. But since then, Sanders has made a remarkable comeback, and not just in terms of his health, having climbed to second place nationally and raised a whopping $34.5 million in a fourth quarter. Crazy Bernie now finds himself leading in New Hampshire and tied for first place in Iowa, according to the latest CBS YouGov poll. Sanders' candidacy is for real, and that means he has to be taken seriously. He was for real back in 2016, and Hillary Clinton and the Democrat Party had that primary rigged against him. You know, if that thing had not been rigged, if Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz and Hillary had not gamed that, he likely would have won the 2016 nomination. And I think he knows it. He was a good soldier. He stood aside, let Hillary have her moment in the whatever. But he's inching up. He's inching up nationally now in second place behind Biden. He's leading in Iowa. He's leading in New Hampshire. He's in third place, South Carolina, second place, Nevada, but he's inching up in all of these places. And the time to be inching up for Crazy Bernie is now. And here's the story from the Daily Beast. Obama world hates Bernie, has no idea how to stop him. It's a question. If the Democrat Party is Obama's, and it is, it's not Hillary's, right? By the way, did you see that Hillary took the job as chancellor of a college in Ireland? That means she's leaving the country, right? She not? Oh, it's just a ceremonial gig. She's not. I thought it was a legitimate chancellorship. Oh, okay. I thought she was fleeing the country. I thought there might have been something to that. All right. Well, anyway, it's not. The Democrat Party is not Hillary Clinton's. It's Obama's. And if that's true, then what would stop an extremely well-funded radical left candidate from running as a third-party candidate? Crazy Bernie, 78 years old, recovering from a heart attack. If he doesn't win the Democrat nomination, you think he's just going to go away? This is his last campaign. You know, and a bunch of Crazy Bernie supporters have said on previous occasions, if he doesn't get the nomination, they're voting for Trump. I don't know how many, I don't know what percentage. President Obama's top lieutenants are eager to poke every conceivable hole in Bernie Sanders' campaign, but ask about a coordinated effort to stop him, and you hear nothing. You get crickets. Less than a month before voting begins, Obama has declined to endorse anybody, particularly Biden. I was the first to tell you that Obama wanted no part of Biden. But he wants no part of Crazy Bernie either. And don't be surprised if in the midst of this you continue to hear a name tossed out randomly now and then, Michelle Obama. And when her name is tossed out, you know, it'll be along the lines of, there's only one Democrat who can really beat Trump, and that's Michelle Obama. And that's going to be strategically placed and leaked during the primary process. Because I'm telling you right now, the smart money, the people make a living following this. If Trump is 70-30 to win re-election. 70-30. There's also this, I should tell you. There is a line of thinking. 20% says that Trump may not run for re-election. He will just declare victory, say he has accomplished everything he set out to accomplish, and go back to becoming king of the Trump Organization at Mar-a-Lago. It's a 20%. This is nothing formal. It's barely in one of the the betting sites, which will put any proposition up, and anybody can then vote on it. But at least it's out there. CNBC mistakes Andrew Yang for a Republican venture capitalist also named Yang. You notice how many times this happens? A drive-by me, they confuse black guys. They'll call John Lewis. They'll say John Lewis, and they'll put a picture up of Elijah Cummings. And now they're confusing Andrew Yang with some other Yang who happens to be a Republican Yang. Andrew Yang's a Democrat Yang. And these journalists make these college journalism school mistakes. that nobody calls him out on. They're profoundly embarrassing. Okay, I've got to take a break. I do want to share with you excerpts of this column for this Columbia. Folks, I'm actually thinking about not naming him. It's this embarrassing, but it is a great indication. It's a great illustration of how gone they are on the left over climate change and what they are doing to kids, scaring the hell out of them in an effort to advance a stupid political issue. Got to take a break. We'll be back. Much more straight ahead.
Rush is always at work.
And back to the phones we go. Rush Limbaugh, having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Here is Joe in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Joe, can I tell you a quick story about Sheboygan? When I was growing up in my hometown, Cape Girardeau, we had the local newsman did the weather as well. Don McNeely was his name, KFES TV Channel 12. And he always gave the weather in Sheboygan. And nobody in Cape Girardeau cared a whit about what was happening in Sheboygan. He just liked to say the word. So I knew growing up what the weather and temperature in Sheboygan were every day I watched television growing up. I just thought you should know that.
Well, it's about 35 degrees here today, Rush, but we're all warmed up by listening to you and the great information that you share.
Thank you, sir.
Let me just say Megadittos, Maharishi. And Rush, what better title could you have than Maharishi? So I don't think anything else is worthy than Maharishi for you. Hey, I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller. I actually started listening to you back in the early 90s when I was in the People's Republic of Madison as a rare conservative student.
Oh, yeah.
At UW-Madison.
Yeah.
I appreciate the information that you've shared with me throughout the past 30 years. It's helped me to be a good, well-informed voter and a good citizen.
I appreciate that. You know what? That's very, very nice of you to say.
Yeah, and before I talk about the president's call yesterday into the EIB, I just want to mention as well, my son William, he's 9. He's going to be envious. He's at school today, but he has read all 5 of the Rush Revere books, and he read them about 2 years ago when he was 7. And literally for the past 2 years, every Friday that he's been home from school, when they're off, he's tried to call into the EIB network, and he hasn't been able to get through. But I will share this call with him today. He's a huge fan of Rush Revere. I finally broke down and got him a Liberty doll this Christmas. And Dad got a Stand Up for Betsy Ross T-shirt.
Well, hang on when we finish the call, because we've got a whole package of stuff from Revereville that we will love to send him. So hang on. We'll get your address and stuff at the end of the call.
William's got 43 first cousins, so he's trying to get all of them to read all 5 books, and he's really hoping that you'll write more books, whether it be about the Electoral College, which I'm trying to educate him about, or who knows, maybe even impeachment. I think Rush, Revere, and Liberty could have some great ventures with those 2 subjects as well.
God bless you.
Let me tell you about how excited I was yesterday to hear that the president was going to be calling in to your show. My wife and I actually rearranged our entire schedules for the afternoon so that we could have the chance to listen to the president. And I really want to compliment the president for reaching out to all of us, your great listener base, and sharing with us a lot of information and insight as to some of the things that he's involved in right now. But, Rush, I really believe the bigger compliment has to go to you and us as your listeners. Obviously, the work that you do behind the golden EIB microphone and all of us as your listeners across this great nation, we are a respected and an appreciated constituency. And I'm just humbled that the President of the United States would find value in reaching out to us.
Thank you, sir. Now, hang on. Don't hang up. And we are back on the cutting edge of societal evolution. One of the points our previous caller was going to make before we sadly ran out of time was that he was overwhelmingly impressed that the president sat through a commercial break. And that's an astute observation. We did take a commercial break, and during the break, Mr. Snerdley said to the president, "It's not going to be long. We'll be back here in about 8 minutes. It's one of our shortest commercial breaks." And the president, it's not a problem at all. You tell Rush I understand how this works. You got to make the big money to pay the big money. So you tell him to do whatever he's got to do. I'll wait here until it's time to get back. And that's what he did. And I made the executive decision to blow through the second spot break. Because if I hadn't done that, the last segment with the president would have been 3 minutes instead of 10. And there was no way I was going to know. Well, I mean, he just barely gets wound up. He's like me. 3 minutes, and Mr. President, thank you. So out of time. You know, it would still be 7 minutes to 3 o'clock. So, he was cooperative. It's a very astute observation on the part of the caller. Hey, folks, we're beyond the holiday season. We're beyond Christmas, and a lot of people have decided that they got what they wanted, didn't get what they wanted, maybe thought about giving things they didn't give, now thinking about making up for it. If you happen to think that good home security is still expensive, you need to revise the way you're looking at it. Home security is going through a massive innovation because of Simply Safe home security. Simply Safe has revolutionized and innovated. Now, this is, I have to be careful. I'm not trying to be critical of the existing home security market, because the U.S. is a big market, all kinds of people who want all kinds of options. And so when we tout the virtues of a particular business or sponsor, we're not implying criticism of anybody else. But Simply Safe really has innovated, and they have made changes that make really good, really, really superior home security much cheaper. Now, the innovation they've introduced is the absence of wires. Now, you might think that's not a big deal, first glance. Stop and think about it. Imagine your average American home and all the windows in it and all the doors, and you've got to put sensors on them that will alert you if somebody is illegally entering via one of those points, a door or a window. Now imagine having to run a wire to every one of the doors and windows that you put a sensor on. Those wires have to be run by somebody. They have to connect to something in addition to the sensor. You don't want the wires to be seen, so what do? Well, do you do a construction project, put the wires behind the wall? Do you put them on the baseboard above the wall and paint them the same color as the baseboard so they can't be seen? What do? And then if there's a problem, if one of the sensors goes bad, oh, Lord, now you're chasing down wires, trying to figure out which sensor is bad based on what the keyboard tells you. And you don't know if it's the wire, if it's the sensor. You take the wire out of this, and you have taken so much of the complexity out that it doesn't hit you until you start thinking about it. There are no wires with Simply Safe. You get these sensors and you attach them via Stickum or any other similar way to whatever door and window you want. You can get video cameras, HD. You can get motion detectors, glass breaking sensors, and you can put them anywhere because they communicate via Wi-Fi to the base station in your house. Now, the base station is not a big thing. It's a cylinder, cone-shaped thing, 5, 6, 8 inches high, and it looks cool. Blinking lights on it and so forth, and that's the hub. And if there's a break-in, the sensor triggered communicates it to that thing, and then you have 24/7 monitoring. That's what calls the cops or the fire department. And if you have an HD camera and it can be established there is an intruder in your home, then the response time is 3.5 times faster, because otherwise they might think it's a false alarm. It's really something to look at. You can do one room, you can do a condominium, an apartment, or a whole house. Small business. SimplySafeUSA.com. When you buy one now, you'll get the HD camera free. That's a $100 value. And get this, a 60-day money-back guarantee and free shipping. That means 2 months to try it. If it doesn't meet your expectations, send it back. All of your money will be refunded. SimplySafeUSA.com. Here's Greg in Tampa. Greg, great to have you, sir. Hello.
Thank you, Rush. Mega dittos, longtime listener. In listening to AOC and many of the media personalities questioning Obama or President Trump's strike on the General Soleimani, I was reminded of a strike that Obama ordered back in 2011. An American citizen named Anwar al-Awlaki was killed by a drone strike in Yemen. and he wasn't afforded any of his due process rights as an American citizen. And I didn't hear any protests from Democrats. The only person I can actually remember was maybe Rand Paul, questioning if you can kill an American citizen abroad without any constitutional rights. I was wondering your opinion, or if you remember this.
Your call is especially significant here and noteworthy because of your timing. Let me first tell everybody that Greg here is exactly right. Obama loved killing terrorists with drones. He absolutely loved it. Obama personally picked the targets. Obama personally gave the orders. Now, Anwar al-Awlaki was an American citizen who had become a radical Islamist terrorist who had influenced many American military people on U.S. military bases. The guy was an influencer, and he had perverted, corrupted the minds of many otherwise innocent people, and Obama decided to take the guy out without due process. And he loved doing it, and he demanded, Obama demanded from his intelligence community for the list of people that were subject to this kind of attack. He demanded to pick the names. There happens to be a new book about this very subject. Actually, it's not a new book. It was new in 2013. There's a flashback story here from the Huffing and Puffington Post. And it was published November 4th, 2013. This was the year after Obama was re-elected for his second term. The headline of this story, Obama told aides he is, quote, really good at killing people. A new book, remember this is a flashback story, 2013. A new book on the 2012 presidential campaign claims that Obama told aides that he's really good at killing people. According to Mark Halperin and John Heilemann. You remember these two guys? These are the two guys that were embedded in campaigns, and they got all this juicy information, and rather than report it during the campaign, they saved it all up for a book. Halperin, by the way, was taken out by the Me Too movement, in case you've forgotten. Alleged to have been a serial sexual harasser at work along the lines of Matt Lauer. By the way, Matt Lauer, do you know where Matt Lauer is? Well, Matt Lauer has a new girlfriend. He bought an island in New Zealand. No. It's called South Island. And it's actually in the northern part of New Zealand. And it's a tiny thing. I think he may be the only resident on the island. I mean, to go to the quick shop, you may have to get a ferry to go to some bigger mainland. But, I mean, it is no paparazzi, nothing. Of course, there were some paparazzi caught him bicycling with the new babe. But anyway, Mark Halperin got caught up in the whole Me Too thing like Matt Lauer did. And it was in this book, according to Mark Halperin and John Heilemann, the authors of Double Down, Game Change 2012, Obama made the comment that he's really good at killing people while discussing drone strikes. CNN's Peter Hamby noted the anecdote in his review of the book for the Washington Post. The quote comes in the context of both the drone program and the killing of Osama bin Laden by Special Forces Strike Force. The passage also specifically references the death of Anwar al-Awlaki, killed by a CIA drone strike in Yemen, just as the caller said, September 30th, 2011. Obama didn't need to run through this preamble. Everybody knew the litanies of achievements. Foremost on that day, with the fresh news about al-Awlaki, It seemed the president was pondering the drone program that he had expanded so dramatically and with such lethal results, as well as the death of bin Laden, which was still resonating worldwide months later. Quote, turns out I'm really good at killing people, Obama said quietly. Didn't know that was going to be a strong suit of mine, quote, unquote, in the Heilemann Mark Halpern book. So our caller, Greg here from Tampa, is right on the money. And he's right. Now, there were some scattered reactions of opposition to this, but not from Nancy Pelosi, not from Chuck Schumer, not from Adam Schiff, not from any, not from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was still tending bar then, I think. There was no reaction from the typical array of Democrats today claiming Trump is endangering America. This guy was ordering drone strikes, Obama was, for what sounds like the fun of it. Got to take a break. We will be back much more straight ahead, as there always is. By the way, folks, I've had a story here in the stack of stuff that McConnell says that he is ready to go with. Here it is. McConnell has the votes to block Democrats' witness demands in Trump impeachment trial. It is a story from thehill.com. Now, there are a couple of tweets that back this up. One of them from a Washington Post White House reporter from Seung Min Kim. McConnell tells Republican senators inside the lunch today that he's got the votes to proceed with impeachment trial without witness deal. And now Mike DeBonis, who is a Washington Post congressional reporter, tweets that meanwhile, multiple Senate Democrats are saying now that it's clear the Republicans are dug in against a witness deal. So it's time to send the articles over and start the trial. I think the time has passed. She should send the articles over, said Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut. Now, the interpretation here is that McConnell is basically telling the Democrats who want to call witnesses, including Bolton, to go pound sand. And that the Democrats, these two media people, think that that's it. So, okay, Nancy, may as well send the articles over because this is all there is. Nancy is not going to send the articles over, folks. Not yet. I wouldn't be surprised if she never does, but I don't want to get a hard, fast predictions that I'm locked into here because we're starting a new year. And that opinion audits from the Sullivan Group, we're at 99.8% almost always right now. I don't want to put that at risk. Hey, you use free Wi-Fi. You have to be aware that your data is not safe when you're online. If you're on free public Wi-Fi, the odds are that there's a hacker nearby trying to find out who's on and how to get into their system. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Some of them do it for the fun of it. Some of them do it to corrupt other people's machines, plant viruses or other things that will actually transmit contact information, other data from your machine to theirs. So what you need is a VPN, folks. You need to be able to access public Wi-Fi. We all do. Get a VPN, virtual private network. That means you can't be seen. The hacker, you can be sitting right next to him, and he will not see your connection. And there's no way, you can't hack a VPN, not the one that you're paying for. Don't do a free VPN. You're defeating the purpose. Whether you're sending or receiving over Wi-Fi, Norton Secure VPN, that's a one to get. They use bank-grade encryption in addition to hiding the connection and keeping it invisible. It's encrypted. Doesn't slow down your connection speed. Doesn't slow down your download speeds or your uploads. It's like all of your information and all of your online searches travel through a secure pipeline nobody can see. Literally is invisible. There's a lot of VPNs on the market. We here, the EIB network, have done the homework. Norton Secure VPN is the best one. $3.33 a month for 5 devices. Laptop, pad, tablet, phone, you name it. $3.33 a month with an annual plan. Norton.com/VPN is the website.
Hear it